Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 3, Drunk in Wild Songs. Chapter 268, Bodhi. Xue Xiaoyi's legs felt weak. He braced himself against the door frame as he slid to the ground, where he sat and watched as his wife, concubine, and maidservants pack up the valuables with harried expressions. He muttered, "Can't leave. I haven't gotten Jin Jiu back." The sound of footsteps rang out beyond the courtyard. The guard on duty in the compound craned his neck for a look and got the fright of his life when he saw that it was all the capital command troops. The door to the courtyard slammed open with a crash. As the capital command troops swarmed in, Xue Xiaoyi waved his arms and cried, "The imperial censor slandered me. I was wrongly accused." The newly appointed viceroy of the capital command troops fished out an authority token and document from under the folds of his clothes and said, "The edict from the Ministry of Justice comes with Her Majesty's inked approval." He surveyed the courtyard. "Take the rest of them away." The capital command troops hoisted Xue Xiaoyi up, his feet slipping on the ground as they gagged him. With Fu Man imprisoned, a batch of eunuchs had been removed from office. That very night, Li Jianting swapped out all the key officials from the palace affairs yamen. The guards who went knocking on doors did not even wait for the parties involved to refute. They simply gagged them outright and arrested them, moving even faster than they did that time when Li Jianting was poisoned. The sounds of footsteps prevailed everywhere in the palace, and innumerable guards stood in the shadows at the foot of the walls. Eunuchs and palace maids who were still on shift duty moved and spoke with caution. Each one of them kept their hands to themselves and lowered their heads, not daring to look around as they pleased. Xue Xiaoyi did not sleep. With his clothes draped over him, he stood by the window and listened to the flurry of running footsteps beyond the high wall. The overcast clouds had just dispersed after the rain stopped and the cold, clear moonlight bathed him within. Shadows of the bamboo before the window fell upon his side profile. Yair rubbed his nose roughly and urged Xue Xiaoyi to rest. Xue Xiaoyi looked back and asked, "Is Jin Jiu sleeping well?" Yair nodded and pointed in the direction of Xue Jin's room as he uttered in a reply of sorts. Xue Xiaoyi thus said, "You may go to bed." Yair was unwilling to. He beckoned to Xue Xiaoyi with a hand, indicating for him to eat something. Xue Xiaoyi did not answer. He lowered his fingers to pick up the wiki stone on the wiki board and scrutinized it, as if he could not figure out something. Yair looked resigned when he saw Xue Xiaoyi remaining still in place, but instead of leaving, he sat down at the entrance of the room. A long time passed before Xue Xiaoyi tossed the wiki piece back into the container. ******. The next day, after the morning court session, Xue Xiaoyi waited outside Mingli Hall for Li Jianting to summon him. There were countless memorials impeaching him today. The moment Xue Xiaoyi was imprisoned, the charge of corruption and bribery against him was substantiated. Rumors on the streets kept in step with the course of events, and subsequently, the number of students from the Imperial Academy sending visiting cards to Xue Xiaoyi saw a decline, too. Xue Xiaoyi's taking of another man's son indeed runs counter to proper decorum. An imperial censor kneeled before the emperor's desk. "No matter what, Xue Xiaoyi is his elder brother of legitimate birth. Your Majesty, since time immemorial, there has never been a case where the younger brother of illegitimate birth seized the legitimate firstborn son of his older brother of legitimate birth. Moreover, as the imperial preceptor, he ought to lead by example. By acting in such a way, isn't he teaching the whole world to show contempt for the rules of propriety and to disregard one's familial relationship?" Li Jianting closed the memorial. "Xue Xiaoyi favors his concubine and neglects his wife, and he hankers after wealth and is given to extravagance. On the contrary, I think that in doing so, Xue Xiaoyi has acted exactly in accordance with propriety. He is doing it in consideration of his Xue clan's legitimate lineage. There is nothing improper about it." This imperial censor was almost 70 of age. He tottered unsteadily as he kowtowed and continued, "This old subject thinks otherwise. If his elder brother has done wrong, he can openly admonish and exhort him. This is what it means by showing love and respect as brothers should. Li Jianting, having heard an entire morning's worth of tenets on propriety, promptly rose to her feet. As the saying goes, appoint the virtuous and stability will prevail, appoint the unvirtuous and turmoil will reign. What is a person of virtue? He is one who can distinguish between the noble and the humble and abides by the rules of propriety. Your Majesty, just as fine medicine that cures is bitter on the tongue, sincere advice that benefits is often jarring on the ears. Unable to take a stride forward, Li Jianting sat back down. The sunny weather that followed the rain was stifling hot, so scorching that the flowers planted before the hall wilted a little. The imperial censor rested for a moment, drank a cup of tea, and continued with his exhortations all without waiting for Li Jianting to speak, and so Li Jianting sat there from the time she got off from the morning court session until the hour of you. After drinking countless cups of tea, the imperial censor said genially to Li Jianting, "Your Majesty, the more intelligent and knowledgeable one is, the more one has to keep their eyes and ears open." He smacked his lips and took a couple of breathers, and hence. Listening to your sermon today trumps studying the classics for 10 years. Li Jianting got up and came over to personally help the imperial censor up. The Huadian on her forehead made her face appear all the more vibrant and beautiful. With an amicable countenance, she said, "I shall have to ask you to share these most sagacious, famous sayings with the students of the Imperial Academy on another day. It's late today, and Zhen can see the signs of weariness on your face. You should head back first for a rest." The imperial censor answered, "I am not worthy," as he walked, but even right before he stepped out of the door, he still had to add, "The wise sage nips the trouble in the bud." Shueziaozuo. Discerning enough to read the scene, Feng Quan came over with a bow to help support the imperial censor. With a smile, he said, "The ground before the hall is slippery. Your venerable excellency, please watch your steps. This humble slave shall support you as you walk." The imperial censor let Feng Quan support him and walked off into the distance. The sunset glow of the setting sun cast a reddish-orange sheen over the potted plants before Mingli Hall, its brilliance causing the golden hairpin by Li Jianting's temple to sparkle. She turned to the side and gazed at Shueziaozuo, who was standing at the foot of the hall. Shueziaozuo's back was ramrod straight, his shoulders seemed to be bearing the last of the light, his official robe shrouded under the remaining rays of the setting sun. Li Jianting could not get a clear look at his expression. "Teacher," Li Jianting raised a hand to lift the beaded curtain, "this way, please." There were no lamps lit in Mingli Hall, nor was there anyone waiting in attendance. Upon entering, Shueziaozuo kneeled before the emperor's desk, but Li Jianting did not return to the throne. She stood at the side of her desk and looked at the calligraphy painting on the wall. "Shueziaozuo's transgressions have nothing to do with teacher," Li Jianting said. "If teacher is here to apologize, it is not at all necessary. Shueziaozuo is corrupt and took bribes. The Ministry of Justice has ordered the arrest of the Juexi merchants who are involved in this case. They went to do so, however, their place turned up empty. Unlike the others who prostrate themselves over the ground, Shueziaozuo kneeled with his back straight, just like the way he did when he was teaching Li Jianting in his residence. Your Majesty has ordered the capital command troops to assist in this case. Naturally, this has nothing to do with this humble subject. The numbers of memorials impeaching teacher of late are as numerous as the numbers of hairs on an ox. Over 10 criminal charges against teacher are listed. But teacher sounds to me to be civilized and composed." Li Jianting gazed at the painting. "Presumably, you must have long anticipated it. One tends to think of change in times of adversity." The light in Mingli Hall disappeared, hiding both of them under the obscure darkness. The palace lanterns hanging under the corners of the eaves outside the hall were not lit, and the entire palace seemed to be in a deep sleep. The towering palace rested against the backdrop of faint light on the horizon. There were no songs of the birds to be heard, nor human voices. You once saved the 13 cities of Zhuexi with Zhangqing Shan, and took down Huasaiqian with Hailianji. You also went without sleep and rest in order to investigate the 8 cities' field taxes. There is no one else in this world who understands better than you just how tough it is to eliminate the chronic ailment that is the noble clans. Li Jianting raised a finger to touch the calligraphy painting with Emperor Guangqing's imperial seal on it. You insisted on pursuing the accounts in spite of opposition on the imperial court, and you did it all just to give me an opportunity to win over the long-serving ministers. Every matter had an order of importance and urgency. Han Cheng and the Empress Dowager fell from power one after another, and the noble clans had no one else to take up the mantle. They were already showing signs of self-defeating fatigue, one that would lead to its own collapse, and Shueziaos who understood it better than anyone else. You successively submitted memorials requesting to rescind the Fei clan's former rank of nobility, seal their properties for confiscation, and execute their entire clan. Li Jianting slid the pad of her finger around, dragging out fingerprints on the painting, which consequently caused the noble clans to be particularly resentful towards you, and you did that also to give me the opportunity to share a common enemy with them. The Fei clan of Dan City, the Han clan of Wu City, and the Hua clan of Di City, these were the main forces of the noble clans that the Grand Secretariat and Shueziaos Wo assisted Li Jianting before and after her ascension to the throne to expel in one go. Now that they were forced to de-escalate the tension with the noble clans owing to the threat from Zongbo, someone had to shoulder the responsibility for their past feud. Li Jianting looked back and said, "Teacher means to sacrifice himself to help me secure my throne." The palace lanterns at the corners of the eaves were finally lit, and the faint light peeked through the beaded curtains to shine upon Shueziaos Wo's back in a mosaic of mottled light. His back was skinny and his official robe was old. He was like a pine tree nailed to Chu capital, standing unwaveringly in the wind. He gazed at that painting and said, "To safeguard the state, one should not begrudge the sacrifices made." It was said that those who posed a threat to the emperor at the top and lorded it over the imperial court at the bottom were ministers in power. Majority held a tight grip on an enormous amount of power and did not comply with the rules of propriety. They overstepped their authority and formed cliques. In this vein, Huasaiqian was a minister in power. If Li Jianting was just as indecisive and weak-willed as Emperor Xiand and Emperor Tianchen had been, Shueziaos Wo could have opted to become a minister in power, too. However, Li Jianting was not. Perhaps, at certain points in time, Great Zhou needed a gentle and mild emperor, but it was not here and not now, where the pack of wolves were lying in wait for opportunities to strike. If Li Jianting could not be strong-willed and decisive, then all she could do was to be a puppet subjected to the manipulations of the court ministers. In that case, she would be utterly unworthy of sitting here on the throne. There are the imperial censors for admonishments and the court ministers for government administration. Only the Imperial Academy is not above the Imperial Court, yet it can help facilitate the discussion of political affairs worldwide. If the reputation of the Imperial Academy is dependent on a single official, then he is the wolf that can influence the sovereign's policy-making decisions. That is why this humble subject has to stand isolated from the entire body of ministers. Shueziaos Wo's eyes were extremely calm. His calm, however, was not like that of ordinary people. It was more like he already knew of the path that lay ahead. For that reason, he would not budge even if the others were to cast stones at him or spurn him. A prestigious reputation might seem elusive, but in truth, it was also the key to forming a political faction. Hailianji never formed cliques when he was alive. He did not even meet the court officials after returning to his residence every day. But was he really factionless? The gathering of those of humble origins, the political orientation of the Imperial Academy, and the fact that Yao Wenyu could recruit all the virtuous talents in the world for Shenzhequan, all bore the mark of Hailianji's prestigious reputation at play. Shueziaos Wo's appraisals when he served as the chief supervising secretary of the Ministry of Revenue were all outstanding. He rendered meritorious service in straightening up Zhuexi and revitalizing its 13 cities during the reign of Xiand, and then he made meritorious achievements by auditing the field taxes and returning the fields to the common folks during the reign of Shenjian. He used this so-called reputation, and he knew very well the power of inciting social movements. Li Jianting suddenly turned back and asked, "Does teacher not fear death?" To date, no one had ever asked Xue Xiaozuo this question. He looked at Li Jianting and answered, "Court officials die for the state. To safeguard the state, one should not begrudge the sacrifices made." Xue Xiaozuo did not begrudge this life of his and even this lifetime's worth of reputation. He could bear to give them all up. Li Jianting was silent for a moment. "I respect teacher, and I, too, do not begrudge it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Objects that do not hit its limit will not reverse its course, evil that has not reached its peak will not meet its demise." Yao Wenyu scribbled rapidly, his hand writing a scrawl. The floor of the inner chamber was all paved with paper. His brush-holding hand trembled ever so slightly. Finally, he abandoned the brush and covered his lips to cough violently. Opportunity, opportunity. Qi Xiu wanted the Qi clan to keep inheriting Qi Ziyin's Prince of Donglei title. He was far more cautious than Xiao Fangxiu, and even at this point, he could still exercise patience to observe the situation. Shenzhequan had just won over the hearts of the people from the 6 prefectures with the Duan province battle. To completely disassociate himself from the 2 words Shenwei, he had to be benevolent and righteous to the end. So even when Tantaihu's Dun province's garrison troops arrived at the Biwen military drill grounds, he could not take the first move to mobilize troops. And besides, as long as Qi Ziyin did not move, the 300,000-strong Qidong garrison troops would be a blade to the south of Zongbo. Opportunity, opportunity. The prefectural lord wanted an opportunity to completely eradicate the latent threat. The sound of Yao Wenyu's coughs was short and urgent. No longer holding the brush, he merely covered his mouth with a handkerchief. Qiao Tianya had only just arrived that night, and the moment he dismounted his horse and entered the courtyard, he heard the coughing inside the room. "Did no one prepare the medicine for Mr. Fei Sheng?" asked the maidservant in the courtyard. "He only took half a bowl," the maidservant answered in a soft-spoken voice. Then he kept himself inside the room and said not to disturb him. Qiao Tianya pushed the door open. The woolen rug was all covered with fallen paper pages. Fei Sheng, who was following behind, bent over to pick them up, only to see them crammed with words all over. He could not help but blurt out in astonishment, "Is Mr. planning to author a book?" Qiao Tianya was already in the inner chamber. Yao Wenyu's handkerchief was stained red. He shoved aside the wheelchair and picked Yuan Zhou up in his arms. To Fei Sheng, he said, "Call Ji Ran." For some reason, when Yao Wenyu tilted his head back, his nose suddenly started bleeding. Qiao Tianya pulled away Yao Wenyu's hand, which had been covering his mouth and nose. It was damp and cold. By this time, it was already late in the night. Ji Ran had long gone to bed. Qiao Tianya did not dare to wait. With Yao Wenyu in his arms, he leaped down the steps and ran towards Ji Ran's courtyard. With eyes half closed, Yao Wenyu turned his head aside to burrow into his chest, murmuring, "Fei Sheng, pass the message." Qiao Tianya ran until he was sweating all over. He reached out a hand to cup the other side of Yao Wenyu's face, as if he wanted to hold Yuan Zhou down in his bosom. Fei Sheng went on ahead and ascended the steps. Pounding on the door, he shouted, "Open up! Wake the little monk up now!" The young male servant watching the door did not dare to tarry and ran to shout for Ji Ran after moving the latch out of the way. Ji Ran was bundled up in his monk robe when he stepped out. With eyes bleary from sleep, he said, "This humble monk does not see patients at night. Oh! What happened to Mr.?" By the time Shenzhequan hurried over, it was almost dawn. Dressed in a wide robe, he saw Yao Wenyu sleep soundly in the inner chamber and motioned for everyone to head over to the side hall. Expending yourself mentally can easily shorten your life, Ji Ran said. The poison mister is inflicted with is called death delay. As the name implies, it's just the opposite of death chase. This poison is late to come and slow to disperse. It has been over a year now, right? It should be a year and a half now, Fei Sheng still remembered, starting from the time in Dan City. Ji Ran set down the brush, put his palms together, and bowed to Shen Zequan, saying truthfully, when this humble monk first saw Mr., his wrists were already showing shades of blue. Your lordship, this humble monk can't cure this poison and death chase. The color drained from all the faces in the side hall. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In his trance, Yao Wenyu heard the sound of rain. He dreamed of Mount Bodhi. It was as if he closed his eyes, all that greeted his sight would be the endless rain. The cloudy fog among the mountains covered the green bamboo from view. Mud stained his sleeves as he stood in the face of the wind. He felt damp all over, but he could not tell if it was his sweat, or the rain. A spring and an autumn have since passed with our last parting. The soughing of the bamboo sang behind him. Hai Lianji stood at a far distance. And now Yuan Zhou is back. Yao Wenyu looked back. The refreshing breeze sent his wide sleeves billowing. He greeted, "Teacher." Hai Lianji stood with his hands behind his back. His short beard had already gone white. He was not wearing his official robe, just like the year he led Yao Wenyu by the hand into the academy. There was even a Zaoan bag hung around his waist. I heard the wind rouse, and that was how I knew you were back. The soughing of the wind among the bamboo forest was too loud. Hai Lianji's figure lay concealed within, leaving only Yao Wenyu standing alone. The mountain fog was dense. Yao Wenyu looked into the far distance at the imperial palace in Chu capital. He once climbed to a high spot to look far out, but he only saw the picturesque mountain scenery in the twilight. It was only now that he realized just how vast and expansive the world was. "Wait for me, teacher," Yao Wenyu said. "Once the rain stops." The sound of the guqin suddenly rang out. The scene before Yao Wenyu's eyes vanished, and he landed back onto this bed of his. The partially covered window kept out the sunlight. He did not have the sensation of waking up when he opened his eyes. On the contrary, he felt as if he had fallen into a dream. Several times, he closed his eyes. Eventually, he said, "Sanjaya, it's already the hour of C." Qiao Tianya pressed down on the guqin strings and said, "You have gone all confused from a messed up sleep schedule. Don't you usually call me Qiao Tianya?" The moon over the pines lends to the chill of the night, the wind and the spring, in a melodious chorus, sing. Yao Wenyu said, "This name is too lonely. I once had a friend named Xiaofeng Quan." Qiao Tianya strummed the guqin strings, which elicited a series of random sounds but did not form a tune. "A pity he died." Yao Wenyu listened to that disconnected sounds of guqin and asked, "You play the guqin? Does he play it, too?" "I don't remember anymore," Qiao Tianya said. "The only one who can play the guqin for you, however, can only be this Qiao Tianya." Yao Wenyu looked at him. "You have yet to teach me the tune you were going to teach me back then during our first encounter in spring." Qiao Tianya stopped and looked at Yao Wenyu as he answered, "It's still not too late now." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shueziyi did not give a clear account. The residences of those merchants were all empty. Chu capital required proof of household registration for access in and out of the city. The capital command troops kept guard for 3 days, but they never did find those people. These merchants who had wantonly squandered their money on Donglong Street seemed to have vanished into thin air. Kong Qiu received Shueziao's request in the office compound. He set the teacup down and considered it for a moment. "Let him go." When the official returning his reply left, Sen Yu said from opposite him, "I fear that it's inappropriate to let Shueziao's have a hand in this case at present. This matter concerns the inner court, and the amount of silver involved is large. After the Ministry of Justice formulates the charges, they will definitely want a joint trial by the three judicial offices. Kong Qiu picked up the teacup again. Xue Xiaozuo is the Vice Minister of the Court of Judicial Review. Since he has not been suspended from duty, he has the authority to supervise and investigate the case. Xue Xiaoyi is his eldest brother, after all. He ought to avoid drawing suspicion to himself. Sen Yu held his knees. Furthermore, the amount of memorials impeaching him are increasing as of late. Not that I'm insinuating anything, but Zunyi, the Chief Surveillance Bureau, ought to be dealt with, too. Kong Qiu took several sips of tea. It's not wrong to impeach Xue Xiaoyi for corruption and bribery that day on the imperial court, but dragging in Xue Xiaozuo inevitably makes it look like there's personal grudge at play, too. Look at those words that were spouted, every single one of them is groundless. Xue Xiaozuo is a man of extraordinary merits, and he comes from a noble clan, Sen Yu said. Those who hate him are only all too anxious to trample on him. If Her Majesty had been willing to rebuke him with a word or two when dealing with Xue Xiaoyi, it wouldn't have gone as far as to cause such a mass outrage. Unable to taste the tea in his mouth, Kong Qiu set down the teacup and said after a moment of silence, to begin with, a direct remonstration is not the way to go for this matter. Xue Xiaozuo audited the field taxes and returned the fields to the commoners in Dan City, Wu City, and Chuan City. Yang City suffered a drought this year, and Zhangqingshan encountered difficulties in trying to borrow grains, begging from all quarters in Chu capital. Even so, both of them did not touch the grains allocated to the common folks of the three cities. The people all remember him, and they are even willing to erect a longevity tablet to honor him at home. Her Majesty has only just refuted his memorial to continue pursuing the field taxes, and to ease the situation, she rewarded Zhangqingshan. If she were to censure Xue Xiaozuo now because of that scoundrel Xue Xiaoyi, the people of the three cities would object. Besides, it's common knowledge that Xue Xiaozuo and Xue Xiaoyi are on bad terms with one another, and they have long divided up the family properties to live apart. The imperial censors want Her Majesty to dismiss Xue Xiaozuo from office pending an investigation because of this matter, but if Her Majesty did as you asked, wouldn't it show that she is cold-hearted and ungrateful for casting him aside once he has served his purpose? Xue Xiaoyi colluded with Fu Man to commit embezzlement and bribery, and Her Majesty immediately ordered the Ministry of Justice to investigate. She has not shown any intent to shield Xue Xiaoyi for Xue Xiaozuo's sake either. Investigate what ought to be investigated and kill those who ought to be killed. You can't push others into too tight a corner. Sen Yu could tell from Kong Qiu's words that he meant to protect Xue Xiaozuo, so he said, the imperial censor remonstrated only because he feared Her Majesty will show favoritism and side with Xue Xiaozuo. If Her Majesty listens to Xue Xiaozuo in every matter, it will mess up the order of hierarchy between the sovereign and her subjects. Besides, Her Majesty showed favor towards Fu Man a few days ago, but didn't Fu Man forget his place and do wrong still? Kong Qiu pointed at Sen Yu. That's right. It's because Her Majesty favored and trusted Fu Man that Fu Man would commit one mistake after another, but this time, you're not seeing it clearly. Let me ask you, who is Fu Man? He was on good terms with Xiao Qiye at the beginning, yet he could switch allegiances to Han Cheng and lured Xiao Qiye into the palace, and he could also turn around and kill Han Cheng for the sake of his own future prospects and life. The poisoning case was left inconclusive. Her Majesty might not have pursued it, but she is no fool. Fu Man is highly reputable among the inner court yamen, and his godsons and god-grandsons are everywhere. Most importantly, he is a eunuch with power and influence who has served in 2 reigns, waiting in attendance by the Son of Heaven's side. He holds the endorsement rights that will permit him to reject the Grand Secretariat's memorandums. Right now, Her Majesty is in the prime of her life, but what about after? Any oversight while retaining such a vile character by the side will result in physical harm or worse, the ruin of state foundation. Even if Her Majesty doesn't kill him, I will kill him. As Kong Qiu spoke, he stood up and paced a couple of steps. Shenzhen mass deployed troops to the Biwen military drill grounds. How long can the 40,000 new soldiers in Chu capital hold up for? We have to ask Commander-in-Chief Qi to mobilize troops to come to Her Majesty's aid. When Commander-in-Chief Qi sent troops to fight the Qingsha tribe the last time, Xue Xiaozuo was the one who provided the military salaries and provisions, and now that we want to get past Tianfei Watchtower to fight Zongbo, we still have to ask Xue Xiaozuo for the military salaries and provisions. The warden from the Ministry of Justice was familiar with Xue Xiaozuo and opened the doors for him. Is Your Excellency here to see Custodian Xue? As long as you have a memorandum, I'll go open the doors now. Xue Xiaozuo looked along the warden's arm for just a fleeting moment before he withdrew his gaze and said, I am here to see Yingxi. The warden did not ask too many questions. After looking through the memorandum, he led Xue Xiaozuo inside and unlocked the prison door for him. As Yingxi Gonggong still has an ongoing case, he is not locked up with the others. Your Excellency, this way. Xue Xiaozuo lowered his head and entered the cramped, narrow cell. Yingxi's prisoner attire was filthy and he had been tortured. At present, he was lying inside with his arms and legs curled up. Upon hearing movements, he shuddered and jolted up into a sitting position, covering his head as he cowered out of the way and shouted, I'm guilty. Guilty. Don't hit me. Xue Xiaozuo looked around. Yingxi saw Xue Xiaozuo through the gap between his arms and immediately scrambled off the bed to kneel at his feet and pleaded, Your Excellency, is Your Excellency here to investigate the case? I'm guilty. Guilty. Shaking the chains, he pointed at his own face. But this time I was wrongly accused. He clenched at Xue Xiaozuo's official robe until it was all creased. Xue Xiaozuo lowered his eyes to look at Yingxi. A final judgment has not been reached for your crimes yet. I'm going to ask you a few questions. If you can answer me truthfully, I will put in a mitigation plea to the officials from the Ministry of Justice. Yingxi hurriedly nodded, his gaze following Xue Xiaozuo as he answered, I will tell you all I know. Everything I did was all at the Lao Zuzong's behest. Who was the one who sent you to Qidong to supervise the army? The former emperor, Yingxi answered. The former emperor sent me to Qidong to supervise the army, and the Lao Zuzong was the one who recommended me for it. Lao Zuzong said with us father and son on the inside and the outside, we will no longer have to worry about our meals, nor put ourselves at other people's beck and call. Xue Xiaozuo continued to ask, were you the one who swapped out the military grains in the Bianjun commandery? How could Yingxi have expected Xue Xiaozuo to ask about this? He released his grip and started cowering back, his gaze evasive as he hedged, I'm merely an army supervising eunuch, how would I dare to swap the military grains? He looked at Xue Xiaozuo's displeased expression and unexpectedly blurted out to implicate other people, I did not force that Lu Guangbai to defect. Xue Xiaozuo bent over to grab Yingxi's arm. He probed again, were you the one who swapped out the military grains in the Bianjun commandery? Yingxi's breathing was short and urgent. Unable to avoid it, he could only wipe his tears and snot and answered with deep remorse, this matter really isn't up to me, Your Excellency, Your Excellency. I only knew that I had to swap the grain wagons, but who knew it was all moldy rice inside? If I had known it beforehand, I would not have dared to switch it even if you endowed me with 10 guts. When he spoke to this point, he recalled the constant fear and anxiety he had been under this year and could not help but shed tears as he sniveled, the Lao Zuzong has really put me in hot water. Commander-in-Chief Qi took me into custody. I'm just the scapegoat taking the blame for Fu Man. He has a guilty conscience, so naturally, he wanted to save me. Xue Xiaozuo had been investigating the Bianjun commandery's military grains case all this time. There were no problems with all the Ministry of War officials involved. It was only until Yingxi re-entered the palace that he remembered the army supervising eunuch. Scorpion. Xue Xiaozuo stared at Yingxi as he asked, What are you planning to do by entering the palace? Yang Shi shook his head vigorously, his face a wretched sight as he choked with sobs and answered, "It's not me, not me. It was really at Fu Man's behest that I entered the palace this time. Your Excellency, he wrote a letter to me in the 6th month, wanting me to take care of the flowers and plants in his courtyard on his behalf. He was waiting to use them in the 9th month to win his master's favor. I really came here this time to deliver the flowers. You people have been hiding in Chu capital." Xue Xiaozuo raised his voice. "Who else do you still want to kill?" Yang Shi's arm was hurting from Xue Xiaozuo's grip. He bawled, "I don't know. I don't know. I was wrongly accused." "How about Shen Zequan?" The expression in Xue Xiaozuo's eyes grew increasingly grim. "Is Shen Zequan a scorpion, too?" Yang Shi shook his head haphazardly as he struggled. "I have nothing to do with the rebels. I swear to heaven, I'm in no way associated with the rebels." Was Xiao Qiye's nomination of Fu Man into office also instigated by Shen Zequan? In the instant Yang Shi pushed and shoved at Xue Xiaozuo felt a chill creep down his spine. Things that he could not figure out now all seemed to click together. And that relay report that told on Wei Huigu. The expression in Xue Xiaozuo's eyes was terrifying. You eunuchs were the one who swapped the tags and had the Ministry of Justice switch to the Ministry of Revenue. The aim was to make Wei Huigu turn himself in. You were cutting off the tail to keep the scorpions safe. It was Fu Man. It was the eunuchs. No wonder there were no traces to be found on the imperial court. Fu Man had his head lowered as he gasped for breath when a bucket of salt water suddenly splashed over his face. He was wounded all over, and the pain caused him to yell out, but as his limbs were all bound, he could only cuss at the top of his voice, "You son of a bitch." Feng Quan threw aside the bucket and scoffed, "You're no decent cur either. It's all because of you," Fu Man's voice was shrill, "that I'm in such dire straits today. You did it to yourself." Feng Quan smacked Fu Man's face condescendingly. "Just a mere few years old bastard, and you dare to call yourself the Lao Zuzong. Seems to me that you're tired of living." Fu Man could not hold his face straight from Feng Quan's smack. Such a smack like this that used moderate strength did not hurt like a slap would, but it was much more humiliating. Blood saturated Fu Man's mouth. Spewing a mouthful of blood, he said, "Just you wait. Her Majesty. Wait for Her Majesty to raid your properties and execute your family." Feng Quan leaned in and whispered, "Do you think no one knows you poisoned Her Majesty? You set me up and had me thrown into prison, so anxious were you for me to die. Do you think Her Majesty can't see through you?" He started laughing oddly, as if he loathed Fu Man to the death. "Once your family is wiped out, we can move on to all 9 generations of your clan." Fu Man spat out a few mouthfuls of teeth that had come loose and said, "Bull fucking shit, you despicable thing." "It wasn't me." Gasping heavily for breath, he tilted his head back and shouted, "It wasn't me. Who else can it be if not you?" Feng Quan took several steps back. "You were the one who received Han Cheng's death chase. Han Cheng gave it to you, wanting you to add it to Her Majesty's meal. Once she was killed, the capital command troops would immediately be able to kill the officials of the Grand Secretariat on grounds of rushing to the Emperor's aid. So you poisoned Her Majesty's food and almost killed her. I know my own limits." Fu Man was so resentful that his voice trembled. As he looked at Feng Quan's expression, his eyes gradually widened. "It's you. You were the one who added the poison." Fu Man was in two minds between Li Jianting and the noble clans. He did not dare to disobey Han Cheng, but he did not dare to poison Li Jianting for real either. Thus, he had swapped death chase with a common poison and he only added a little, so it was not all that deadly. Feng Quan, whose face lay concealed in the darkness, revealed his pearly white teeth. "You are the Lao Zuzong, the great forefather. I am just the little Zuzong." Fu Man wished with a vehemence to tear Feng Quan apart with his hands. Clanging the chains hard, he snapped, "Ying she is your bitch." Tisk Feng Quan made nothing of Fu Man. The one who brought him up single-handedly is the Lao Zuzong. He's so overwhelmed with gratitude for you that he doesn't acknowledge me at all. I have been wronged. Fu Man could not hold back his cries as he wailed sorrowfully, "Your Majesty, I am innocent." Unaccustomed to the stench of blood, Feng Quan covered his nose as he advised, "Since you have confessed to it all, I will present your statement as it is to Her Majesty." He turned around and summoned the warden in. "The Lao Zuzong is advanced in age. Don't apply any more heavy torture. The various excellencies have yet to declare him guilty, so we must follow procedures. He keeps threatening suicide, and I fear that he will bite off his tongue to kill himself before he can even be beheaded." That former subordinate from the Eastern Depot was advanced in age, too. Bowing to Feng Quan's wish, he snickered, "We are experts at this, so don't worry, Feng Gong Gong. I guarantee he will live until his execution. As for biting off his tongue to kill himself, all we have to do is to just have his tongue cut off to preempt it, isn't it?" Feng Quan looked back and replied, "Then I shall have to trouble you." Fu Man watched the eunuch approach and cried out in terror, "Without permission from the Ministry of Justice, how dare you, how dare all of you?" The door slammed shut with a loud clank. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In the evening, Xue Xiaozuo was waiting in the office compound for Kong Qiu's official reply in writing. He wanted to see Fu Man tonight, so he needed to have the memorandum from the Grand Secretary. This was long past working hours, but the Grand Secretariat had yet to break off for a rest due to the increase of troops at the Biwen military drill grounds. Fu Man tried to bite off his tongue to commit suicide yesterday, and a merciless official took matters into his own hand and cut off his tongue. Kong Qiu took time away from his hectic paperwork and said to Xue Xiaozuo, "Even if you go now, you can't get anything out of him." Fortunately, they recorded his confession statement before they applied the torture. "Should you wish to take a look at it, I'll get the Ministry of Justice to pass it to you." Xue Xiaozuo froze for a moment when he took the memorial, then frowned and asked, "How can he take matters into his own hands when it is a matter of this magnitude?" Who was the official who applied the torture? A young man in the prime of his youth. Kong Qiu frowned, too. That was really one ruthless move. The Ministry of Justice has already dismissed him from office. How could there be such a coincidence? Xue Xiaozuo turned his head to the side. "I'll go take a look. Put everything else aside first." Sen Yu ran through the door all drenched in sweat that even the sides of his temples were soaked through. He stuffed a paper he was clenching before Kong Qiu and said in an urgent tone, "Baran, look. Isn't this a disaster? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The reigning emperor comes from the common population. Who can truly prove without a doubt that her lineage is authentic? We only have Xue Xiaozuo's words for it." Rumors in the streets spread fast. In the course of a night, almost everyone was holding that paper of unknown origin. Xue Xiaozuo can't be trusted either. Just look at his eldest brother, Xue Xiaoyi. What is he? The national rat that almost made the Grand Secretary pass out from anger. Didn't they all say that the current emperor looks like Emperor Yanji? An old man with a walking stick craned his neck. The various excellencies from the Grand Secretariat have given the nod, too. This tea house was in a mess. Qing stroked his newly grown beard as he said, "Yeah, and the little girl from that butcher household in front looks like the former emperor, too. It has been over 10 years since Emperor Yanji was alive. Don't they all have 2 eyes and 1 mouth when it really comes down to it? Seems to me like everyone here resembles him, too." The students gathered around and read that piece of paper through. Each of them had their own ideas on the topic, and after several disputes, they actually went so far as to come to blows. The Xue clan dominates the imperial court, and you people are conspirators who are his accomplices in evil. You're all sinners of great Zhou and should be condemned through the ages. A student's spittle spewed all over. The national rat has already shown his face, and Her Majesty still doesn't bring the Shui clan to justice. If this is not because she fear them, then what? Shui, the other party, who was being yanked by the collar in a crowd so crammed he was tottering, crumpled the torn paper in his hands and lifted it up high. His Honorable Excellency Shui audited the field taxes and returned the fields to the common people. Who among us here can do that? You are all just despicable people slandering him. You people are the real sinners of Great Zhou. Her Majesty did not punish His Honorable Excellency Shui because... Screw your motherfucking balls. Why are you people so insufferably vulgar? Tables and chairs were thrown into disarray as the students traded blows with one another. Brushes and inkstones were knocked all over the ground. One misstep was all it took for one to end up in ink from head to toe. Doors and windows clattered noisily as the students bumped into them. A headmaster hurried in to calm down the situation, but he had not even shouted a word when the repeated bumps and shoves from the students jostled him out of the door. Call for the capital command troops. The headmaster lifted the hem of his robe and stomped his foot as he urged. He was in such a state of anxiety that his neck was flushed red and he was sweating profusely. Hurry, call the capital command troops over. People are going to get killed. His Honorable Excellency Shui is the beacon of light whose glory shines throughout the annals of history. He is a loyal subject. Shreds of paper fluttered all over the air. A student stepped onto the chair and table to stand at a high spot, where he pointed all around him. You people persecute loyal subjects based on a piece of unfounded nonsense. The state and society will be ruined at the hands of you vile. He had yet to finish his sentence when an inkstone came hurtling at him and smashed into his head. It is indeed true that Shui Ziyi colluded with the eunuchs to steal and sell treasures from the palace granaries. The fired-up students could no longer tell who around them was in whose camp. Shui Ziyi's woe is a rat, too. The table flipped over with a thud, and the student lost his footing and fell to the ground. Before he could scramble to his feet, he was trampled upon by the jostling crowd of students. Don't hurt others. A few teachers from the sides pulled at the students. You must not hurt the others. What's happening here? The schoolmaster slapped his thigh, his tears coursing down his aged face. Stop it now. Asterisk. The tinkling sound of the guqin lingered in a never-ending loop in the air. Yao Wenyu played very slowly. The red thread on his wrist swayed at the opening of his sleeves. He had strummed away at the strings until his fingers turned red. Qiao Tianya pressed down on the guqin strings and said, "You missed a part." Without waiting for Yao Wenyu to ask, he plucked a few strings beside Yao Wenyu's hand. Yao Wenyu, however, could still not remember it, so Qiao Tianya took Yao Wenyu's hand and led him into maneuvering the strings. Yao Wenyu raised his eyes to look at him. "Have you ever taught others like this before?" he asked. Qiao Tianya's palm was scalding hot, although when he smiled, it was still as carefree and unfettered. He cast a glance at Yao Wenyu and answered, "I did. Many of them." "And no one ever told you," Yao Wenyu said, "that you're holding too tight." "Perhaps someone did," Qiao Tianya said, "but I don't remember." "You forget fast." The back of Yao Wenyu's hand gradually rose in temperature too. "It's a good habit to have." Qiao Tianya looked back at Yao Wenyu. In this brief exchange of gazes, he suddenly reached over the small table and kissed Yao Wenyu on the lips. The leaves in the courtyard rustled as they fell and landed on Qiao Tianya's back. He raised a hand to secure Yao Wenyu's chin in place. The taste of medicine was bitter, as was Yao Wenyu. This bitterness sprang from between their lips and tongues and dissolved in his chest, becoming a piercing pain. Qiao Tianya found it painful, and he thought the same for Yao Wenyu. As they kissed, he caressed Yao Wenyu's cheeks, as if he had never touched Yao Wenyu in such a way before and wanted to make up for it now. "Do you have something to say to me?" Qiao Tianya stopped and touched the bridge of his nose with Yao Wenyu's. You're lying. Yao Wenyu's pale face broke into a smile. I'm your first student. Qiao Tianya smiled, too. Qiao Tianya. Yao Wenyu raised his fingers to touch Qiao Tianya's eyes. Seek not great merit in life but a safe and smooth sailing life blessed with honor, prosperity, and happiness. I wish you a life of great success and longevity. Qiao Tianya's expression remained unchanged, but the rims of his eyes had gone red. Why don't you wish me luck in finding a good match and be blessed with a household full of children and grandchildren? Yao Wenyu did not wish to say it. You're lying, too, Qiao Tianya said. You already knew how to play this tune. Yuan Zhou has kept his spring meeting with you in this life. Yao Wenyu retracted his hand. I have no more regrets. The wind brushed past them, sending both of their sleeves and robes fluttering. They were clearly this close together, and yet, they were so very far apart. End chapter. Notes. 1 hour of U is 5 to 7 p.m. 2 hour of C is 9 to 11 a.m.